Hello, hello. Mic test, mic test. Naririnig ba ako dyan sa likod? Naririnig? Okay, joke lang. Kunwari nasa large class sana tayo. So, to start, my name is Jesus Paulo Joven and today we will be discussing trigonometric substitution. So, from the name itself, trigonometric substitution, so gagamit tayo ngayon ng trigonometric functions to actually integrate integrals of certain expressions, containing certain expressions. So, um, ano yung mga kailangan natin for this case? Of course, we need all the knowledge you know about trigonometric functions. So, kailangan yung mga identities. Tapos, kung ano rin yung na-discuss coming from Math 21 regarding integrals containing trigonometric functions, as well as yung previous na lecture and discussion, which is trigonometric integrals. So, to start, for trigonometric substitution, we use an appropriate trigonometric function if the integrand contains an expression of the form given here by the following: square root of a squared minus u squared, square root of u squared minus a squared, or the square root of a squared plus u squared, where here a is a positive constant, again a is a positive constant, and u is a differentiable function of x. So since meron tayong gustong i-integrate na differentiable function u, which is in terms of x, of course meron din tayong du or dx na may kita doon. So since again, gagamit nga tayo ng substitution, kailangan palitan din natin yung du later on, saka yung u. So, for this part, um, let's proceed with the first case. So, for our first case, we have the square root of a squared minus u squared. So, if the integrand contains the form square root of a squared minus u squared, yung gagamitin natin dito na substitution would be u, given here by a sine theta. Again, u equals a sine theta, where theta is from negative pi over 2 until pi over 2. So, again, since meron nga tayong du na expression doon, then ano yung mangyayari sa kanya? So, if u is equal to a sine theta, then yung du natin, again, differentiating both sides, again, you have here a cosine theta, d theta. And so, since meron nga tayong expression of the form square root of a squared minus u squared, expressing that in terms of theta would give us the following. So, if we have the square root of a squared minus u squared, again, this is equal now to the square root of a squared minus u is a sine theta. So, yung u squared natin would be a squared sine squared theta. And so, factoring out here a squared, you have here a squared times 1 minus sine squared theta. And then taking here the square root, this is what we obtained. So, again, recall here that 1 minus sine squared theta using our identities is cosine squared theta. So, we have here the square root of a squared times cosine squared theta. And so, taking here the square root, again, yung a natin dito is a positive constant. So, yung square root ni a squared is actually a. While, for the square root of cosine squared theta, that would be the absolute value of cosine theta. Pero, yung theta natin for this part is taken from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So, yung terminal side ng angle would be along quadrants 4 and 1, as well as dun sa may positive x-axis na side. And so, yung cosine natin for this case would be positive. So, yung absolute value niya would be itself. And so, yung square root ni a squared minus u squared is actually a cosine theta lang in terms of theta. So, yung tanong ngayon would be, pagka-integrate mo nung mga expressions na puro theta na lang, what would happen? So, of course, merong mga possibility na may lumabas na iba pang trigonometric functions tulad ng tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant. Um, for sine and cosine, notice here, na kaya na natin silang i-retrieve kasi si sine theta is actually u over a, while si cosine theta naman is actually square root of a squared minus u squared all over a. Pero paano yung iba? So, since alam mo yung sine and cosine, pwede mo ma-retrieve yung tangent, cotangent, and etc. Pero, meron pa tayong isang resource. So, for this case, we could make use of a right triangle. Kunwari right triangle na yan. So, kung kunwari ito si theta, Again, coming from the substitution na ginamit natin, again, u equal to a sine theta. Again, we know here na si sine theta is actually equal to u over a. And so using right triangles, again, si sine is actually the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So pwede nating i-treat ngayon na yung opposite side natin has length a, while yung length u pala, and then yung hypotenuse natin has length a. And so, kunwari, opposite has length u, the hypotenuse has length a, and so using the Pythagorean theorem, yung side natin is actually the other leg, I mean, has side given here by the square root of a squared minus u squared. And so, ito yung gagamitin natin ngayon. So, kung kunwari meron kang tangent theta, for example, this is equal now to the opposite, which is u, divided by the adjacent, which is the square root of a squared minus u squared, and so on and so forth. So, let's deal with our first example. For our first example, let's find here an antiderivative for the square root of 1 minus x squared. So, to start with our solution, um, again, meron tayo ditong form of integrand rather of the form square root of a squared minus u squared. So, gamitin natin yung substitution na u equal to a sine theta. So, ano yung u? Ano yung a natin? So, coming from this portion, note here, na yung u natin is actually equal to x, and yung a natin is equal to 1. So, that means here na we let um, x, this is u, equal now to a, which is 1, multiplied by sine theta. So, again, yung theta natin dito is from minus pi over 2 to pi over 2. And so, what we have here now would be, again, differentiating the left with respect to x, we have here 1 dx equal now to derivative ng sine theta with respect to theta is cosine theta multiplied now by d theta. And so, take note here na yung integral ngayon ng square root of 1 minus x squared dx is equal to the antiderivative of, again, yung square root ng 1 minus x squared coming from this substitution sa taas is given here by a cosine theta. So, the square root of 1 minus x squared now is cosine theta na lang. And then yung dx natin is replaced here by cosine theta d theta. So, we want to know here an antiderivative for cosine squared theta d theta. And recall, coming from the previous lecture, nagagamit tayo ng half-angle identity, which wherein yung cosine squared theta is actually equal now to 1 half ng 1 plus cosine of 2 theta. And then we integrate that with respect to theta. And so, this would give us now 1 half. Integral ng 1 with respect to theta is theta, plus for the antiderivative of cosine theta with respect to theta, again, shortcut na natin kasi meron tayo dito uling linear substitution. We have here sine 2 theta all over 2, and then plus the constant c. And so, since gusto nga natin tingnan ngayon yung trig integrals natin in terms of theta lang, using here a double angle identity for sine 2 theta, which is 2 sine theta cosine theta, we have here 1 half times the quantity theta plus 2 sine theta cosine theta all over 2 would give us sine theta times cosine theta, and then plus the constant c. And so what's left for us to do is to revert this back in terms of the variable x. So, again, coming from yung last part ng previous na slide natin, yung integral ng square root of 1 minus x squared is 1 half the quantity theta plus sine theta cosine theta. Again, yung ginamit natin na substitution kanina is x equal to sine theta. And so kung Gagamitin na natin ngayon yung triangle natin. Alam rin natin actually na yung square root of 1 minus x squared is cosine theta. And so, this is equal now to 1/2 multiplied now by, yung tanong would be ano yung theta. So, since x is sine theta, then theta is actually arc sine x. Dito papasok yung use, in fact, nung restriction natin kanina kay theta na negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 para magkaroon tayo ngayon ng inverse trigonometric functions. And then plus, sine theta is x. Cosine theta is the square root of 1 minus x squared. And then plus the constancy. And so, ito na ngayon yung final answer natin. For example number 2, let's find here an antiderivative for the square root of 49 minus x squared all over x with respect to x. Tulad nung kanina, notice here na meron tayong expression of the form square root of a squared minus u squared. So we'll use here u equals a sine theta. So here, yung u natin, once again, is actually x. And yung a natin is actually, again, 49 is 7 squared, so a is 7. So if we let u is x equal now to a, which is 7, multiplied by sine theta, then yung du, again, differentiating both sides, we'll have here, sorry, not du, I'll have here dx equal now to 7 cosine theta d theta. So thus, the integral now of the square root of 49 minus x squared all over x dx, this is equal now to, yung square root ng 49 minus x squared is yung square root of a squared minus u squared. So papalitan lang natin to by a cosine theta. And so, we have here the integral. Again, square root of 49 minus x squared, a is 7, so that would be 7 cosine theta. Si x coming from the substitution is a sine theta, so that would be 7 sine theta. Tapos si dx is replaced here by 7 cosine theta d theta, which means here that this is equal now to 7 over 7 times 7 sa numerator, you have here 7, integral ng cosine squared theta over sine theta and then d theta. For this case, si cosine squared theta, again, for us to integrate this expression, isusulat natin siya in terms of sine. So we have here 7, integral ng 1 minus sine squared theta all over sine theta d theta. And so this is equal now to 7 times the antiderivative of 1 over sine theta is cosecant theta minus sine squared theta over sine theta is sine theta d theta. And recall here from Math 21, again, formula for the antiderivative of cosecant theta would be ln absolute value. So you have here 7 ln absolute value of cosecant theta minus cotangent theta. And then minus, for the antiderivative of sine theta, that would be negative cosine. So that would be negative negative, so positive 7 cosine theta. And then plus the constancy. So again, dito papasok yung problem natin before na meron tayong expression na merong cosecant and cotangent. So again, we know, once again, that x is equal now to 7 sine theta. Tapos, this would tell us here that sine theta is actually x over 7. So kung i-construct natin yung right triangle, say you have here the following, tapos, kunwari ito si theta, then yung opposite natin is x. The hypotenuse here is 7. Tapos, yung adjacent side ni theta would be yung square root ng 7 squared is 49 minus x squared using the Pythagorean theorem. So, this is equal now to 7 ln absolute value ng cosecant theta. Again, that would be hypotenuse divided by the opposite minus cotangent would be yung adjacent, so that would be square root ng 49 minus x squared divided by the opposite, so that would be divided by x. And then plus, for 7 cosine theta, that would be adjacent divided by the hypotenuse, so that would be 7 times yung square root, the 49 minus x squared, all over 7, and then plus the constant c. And so this is our final answer for this item. So this ends part number 1. Please proceed to the next clip for part number 2 of this lecture.